Welcome to the deep dive. Today you've brought us a really fascinating set of sources that detail a pretty stunning narrative. It's the alleged personal and frankly financial collapse of the artist Offset. And just so we're clear, our mission here isn't to just, repeat rumors. We're here to analyze the documented evidence, the texts, the receipts, the whole context to really understand how a figure with that level of fame could reportedly unravel so quickly.
Exactly. The sources give us this almost forensic look at celebrity instability. And what we're tracing is an escalating pattern. It's really driven by desperation, some really poor judgment, and these big underlying issues, mainly gambling.
Right.
And the key question here, the reason this deep dive is so necessary, is figuring out how his fame stopped being a shield and instead started providing, well, just more and more opportunities for him to self-sabotage. That's the pattern we need to lay out for you.
We're going to trace that exact path. We'll start from those first warning signs, the money troubles, and follow it all the way to the point where this global star was allegedly calling someone at 4 in the morning, literally begging them to bring whatever cash they had.
That's the level of chaos we're talking about.
Okay, let's get right into it. Section 1. The financial cracks and early warnings. The sources make it really clear this wasn't some sudden business failure. It was a slow bleed, a documented pattern of casino losses and borrowing money, all hidden behind the image of celebrity wealth.
And what's really fascinating is that the sources pinpoint an early event, an incident that basically served as a perfect predictor of how he would handle money problems down the line. They cite this alleged $10,000 incident involving the rapper Lil TJ.
Okay, so what happened there?
Well, it wasn't really the debt itself that was the big red flag. It was the reported response. When TJ tried to collect the money, Offset's reaction was allegedly violence, not repayment. He used intimidation as his solution.
Wow, that sets a profoundly dangerous precedent, doesn't it?
It really does.
I mean, if your immediate answer to a small debt is aggression, it suggests you just can't operate in a normal, accountable way with money.
Absolutely. And the sources analyze this as a defining pattern. He's relying on his status, his perceived power, to just avoid the consequences. It showed he was willing to make the same mistake again. Only this time, the sources claim, he targeted the wrong person, someone who would eventually just expose everything.
So wait a minute. If that incident with TJ, a physical fight over 10 grand, was known in some industry circles, why would someone else lend him money? Why didn't that reputation precede him?
That's where the power of celebrity optics, really comes into play. The sources suggest that the pull of his fame, all those social media posts with luxury cars and private jets, it just completely overshadowed any rumors of financial trouble.
So people believed the facade.
They believed the public facade of wealth over the private whispers of desperation. And the TJ incident happened months before this next critical event, which gave him plenty of time to rebuild that illusion of stability.
And that takes us right to the moment that really blew the doors off this whole thing. The 4 a.m. call. This incident allegedly involved Offset calling a woman named Celina Powell in the middle of the night.
Right. And you have to think about what typical industry lending looks like. It's lawyers, contracts, maybe some collateral.
Sure.
This was the polar opposite. The request was reportedly frantic. He was almost begging and specifically insisting she bring all of it, all the cash she could get her hands on, without him even knowing how much that was.
He didn't even name a number, just all of it.
All of it. And that detail is so crucial. It shows a complete loss of control. It signals that all his normal lines of credit label advances, institutional loans, even his reliable private network, they had all dried up.
It was in crisis mode.
Pure crisis management. When you're asking for untraceable cash in the middle of the night, it means you've thrown any concern for your reputation or dignity right out the window. It was just a panic move.
So that leads to the other side of this. Why did Celina Powell agree? Why did she bring the money? The sources give a lot of context on that power dynamic.
They do. They outline this alleged pattern in her own history, a pattern of chasing validation and closeness to status, specifically with men in the entertainment industry. She was apparently known for financing guys who would then refuse to publicly claim her.
So she was a vulnerable target. But do the sources frame her as just a victim? Or do they analyze her role in such a high-risk deal?
Oh, they absolutely analyze her role. The core mistake they point to is this false belief that fame equals financial security. She saw the jets, the jewelry, the whole image, and she mistook those optics for actual solvency. She made a high-risk gamble, assuming a star that big must be good for the money.
Which made her the perfect person to exploit when the reality was the complete opposite. So what about the actual exchange? It was at a casino, right?
That's right. They meet up, he takes the cash, promises to pay it back quickly. But the sources highlight this immediate power imbalance. He allegedly used physical affection calculated gestures as a kind of emotional collateral.
So it wasn't romantic, it was transactional.
Exactly. It was a debt secured by this fleeting performance of intimacy, just enough to keep her hoping for repayment. The documentation suggests she felt that if she pushed too hard for the money, she'd lose not just the cash, but the access and the validation she wanted.
And that transactional relationship then shifts into what the sources call the Christmas turning point. This is where it becomes clear manipulation.
It does. The second major urgent request for money comes specifically on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
The timing is it's incredibly calculated. It's a holiday. People's defenses are down. But what's really telling is what was missing from that call. There was no, how are you, no Merry Christmas, no affection. It was just a stark, singular demand for more money. The mask had completely slipped.
And the documentation says that cold exchange on a day like Christmas was her final wake-up call.
Precisely. That total lack of basic human decency, that's what made her realize she was being used purely as a bank. The dynamic shifted from a risky loan to just open exploitation.
Which brings us to the next phase, deception and stalling tactics. Repayment is due, Christmas is over, so now he has to figure out how to delay paying her back while still looking incredibly rich in public.
And the sources show this classic manipulation tactic. He's allegedly stalling her in private, making excuses, pushing back the date, while simultaneously posting pictures of new watches, private jets, all of it. He's feeding her this private I'm broke story, while his public image is screaming I'm untouchable.
So if she's seeing him flaunting all this wealth, why not just go public right away? Why did she stay quiet at first?
The sources suggest it was fear. She was worried that if she pushed him, he'd just cut her off completely. She'd lose all access and, more importantly, any tiny chance of getting her money back.
So his strategy was just to string her along.
Keep her quiet by giving her just enough hope. But that only worked for so long. The game ended when she reportedly saw social media posts of expensive gifts he'd bought for another woman. That's when it all clicked. The 4 a.m. call, the supposed crisis, it was a lie. Her money hadn't been for some emergency. It had already been spent on someone else.
And that was the final straw.
That was it. The feeling of being exploited, embarrassed, and just so disrespected, that's what pushed it from a private debt issue to a public accountability campaign.
But the sources indicate the financial part was really only half of it. As things fell apart, what did they reveal about the other risks Offset was taking by, oversharing with someone he was actively lying to?
This is where the story shifts from just financial drama to, well, documented criminal risk. While he was allegedly borrowing money and using Powell as a confidant, he was also oversharing incredibly sensitive family information.
What kind of information?
The sources detail him talking recklessly about Cardi B, their children, even personal issues about restraining orders. He was putting all this sensitive family data into the hands of a creditor he was actively burning.
That's a massive vulnerability. But then it gets even worse.
It jumps into a whole new category when the focus moves to documented threats of violence. And we need to be clear, these weren't just vague, angry rants. The sources point to multiple specific mentions of him wanting to harm Stefan Diggs.
And there was more to it than just that, right? The sources mention prior messages.
Yes, that's what makes this so serious. The sources reference prior alleged messages about a plan to specifically lure and ambush the target.
So why do the sources classify this as something more than just celebrity tough talk? What makes it legally significant?
The distinction is critical. The sources point to the documentation of premeditation. Those alleged messages about luring someone, combined with the on-camera repetition of the threat against a specific person. That combination gives these statements a dangerous criminal weight. This is where his self-destructive behavior moves beyond financial ruin and into potential legal jeopardy.
And the recklessness of it is just staggering. He's making these statements to someone he's simultaneously exploiting and lying to about $50,000.
A complete disconnect.
Which leads us to the end of this whole saga, the final betrayal and the immediate public fallout. It all came down to him allegedly using fake documents to stall her one last time.
That's right. The sources describe an incident where he made her wait up all night for the repayment. But instead of a wire transfer, he sends her these outdated court screenshots as proof the funds were on their way.
He got caught.
He got caught immediately. The screenshots were old, the money wasn't moving, and his response wasn't to apologize or fix it. It was to just disappear. He ghosted her.
And once that deceit was so undeniable, the inevitable happened.
Celina Powell went public. With everything, the texts, the call logs, all the details of his desperation and his lies. And the fallout was immediate. What allegedly followed was Offset threatening her after she exposed him, which led to her posting publicly about her fear for her safety.
And that's really the end of this cycle. The transparency of the receipts, the deception, the exploitation, the alleged threats, it just permanently shifted public perception.
And if you zoom out for a second, what this whole documented downfall shows us is something really instructive about celebrity. It's not about one mistake or a bad run at the tables. It's a predictable, repeating pattern. And it's fueled by addiction, by ego, and by this sense of entitlement that fame so often creates.
So the key finding from the sources is that his celebrity wasn't just hiding his financial problems, it was actually enabling this cycle of self-sabotage. The fame just allowed him to keep finding new people to exploit until he finally ran into someone who was willing to expose the whole game.
Exactly. And the documentation has laid out precisely how this crossed the line from messy drama into documented criminal risk. So the sources really end by leaving you with this final provocative thought. This cycle of debt, deception, and escalating threats is now clearly documented. The question that remains is whether he can or even wants to stop this pattern before the potential legal consequences become an unavoidable reality.
That really highlights the stakes here. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.